Hello, everybody. This is Paul Handley with Three Wire Systems. Today I'm joined by Andy Smith, who's the Vice President of Product Management at Bitzer Mobile, and we'll be talking about mobile container solutions for federal agencies.
How you doing, Paul? Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. How's it going today?
Just wonderful here in California.
So let's jump right into it and can you talk a little bit about what you do there as a product manager for Bitzer Mobile?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bitzer is a enterprise mobility solution that basically allows employees to get access to resources, enterprise resources, federal resources behind the firewall, but creates isolation so that I don't interrupt my personal experience on today's consumer mobile devices. So I have as much rich and fun user experience as I do on my personal side, but yet I have the security I need when I'm accessing critical business data. And as product manager, what I'm doing is out talking to customers. I'm listening to the market, trying to find out what the needs are, what are the features they need, and I bring those back to engineering and we create solutions.
So at Three Wire, we're focused on providing high quality IT solutions and services to our federal customers. And I think it's really exciting that we have a chance to talk to you because what you're representing at Bitzer Mobile is really an amazing set of tools and opportunities that our federal customers are really interested in. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is what are these trends that the federal buyer is seeing? Everybody's heard BYOD. What does that mean? And where have we come from and where we're going to go?
Absolutely. And what's going on in the federal space is the same thing that's going on in the enterprise space, which is the consumerization of the enterprise. These consumer grade devices and experiences are infiltrating into the enterprise and into the federal space through things like BYOD. So bring your own device. So people want to bring their own personal iPhone, iPad, Android phone. Um, but even if it is corporate owned or corporate issued. So COPE stands for corporate owned but personally enabled. If the federal agency is going to issue me an iPhone, I guarantee you I'm downloading Facebook on it and playing with it, and I'm going to check my stocks and stuff like that. So I will, even though it's corporate owned or federally owned, it's personally enabled. I'm going to have my personal apps on there, and I expect a consumer user experience with those personal apps. And so, how do you deal with that from a security standpoint? Is the problem and the challenge that we're faced with.
So yeah, you talk about the problems that we're facing, and that you introduced this idea of a new normal in the user experience. Can you talk a little bit more about that and and how that interplays with business access on the mobile device?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically what happens is gone are the days where my device is purely a business device and I can have kind of clunky applications that they're nice and secure, but the user experience isn't great. Now, I expect apps that are fast, that are colorful, that are rich. I expect a browsing experience that's good. Because I can do all this stuff on my personal side, it really has upped the game or any the user experience on the federal side. If you're going to develop an app, it better be cool. Otherwise, I'm not gonna use it. And from a security standpoint, I really have an expectation that I can get into my device quickly and access Facebook or give it to my kid to keep them quiet at the restaurant. They can play a game on it, and I can do that without necessarily having to enter a long, complicated password or use a one-time token or something like that. That if I'm going to access my personal stuff, I can do it immediately, quickly, and not have a hindered user experience. As opposed to when I access the business side, if I'm accessing federal stuff, I understand that I need an extra layer of authentication, etc. So that's acceptable, but don't hinder my. The new normal is don't hinder my personal experience.
Right, and I think the really important thing that you pointed out was that uh, whether it's a government-owned and issued device that you're personally enabled to use it, or it's a personal device, no matter what, people are going to be doing things that you don't expect,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, these are consumer devices, and they're fun, they're rich, they're cool, and so you're going to be using your personal stuff on there for sure.
Right. Now, in past webinars and in past conversations with folks, I think uh, people who've listened to the previous webinars know that we've introduced concepts like MDM. It mobile device management. How do you manage the devices? But there's this whole alphabet soup out there. Can you make sense of that for us?
Yeah, one interesting. There's all these three-letter acronyms, right? And certainly the government space is used to that. I just made a prediction for 2013 that the analysts in this community will come up with at least three more three-letter acronyms for the mobility space. And I've already heard a few. I've got some predictions there too. But so mobile device management has been what's popular for the last couple of years, and it's really about managing that device and some very necessary things. If I'm going to allow that device on my network, I want to push a Wi-Fi profile, things like that. But what's starting to percolate is that's not traditionally been enough, and it really is what's the asset that I'm trying to protect? It's probably not the device. Actually, I don't care too much if the user loses the device. What I care about is if that data gets compromised and I lose that data, and the information on there, or it's really the apps that I care about. So there was mobile device management, and then the next generation is mobile app management, and so that is really MAM, and so that's really about how can I distribute and secure applications. And one of the ways to secure applications is with a secure container. That's one of the things Bitzer does, is the ability to add a layer of security around an existing application. So a layer of encryption, um, a layer of control and policy, and MCM is mobile container management. So, how do I then manage a containerized application? And all this gets wrapped up into uh, now the industry term is EMM for kind of including all these things. So enterprise mobility management, and which pieces of these you deploy, whether you need a container, whether you need an enterprise app store, whether you need MDM, it really depends on your goal, right? So on what you're really trying to achieve. You may need to piece all these together. You may be able to do one and not the other. So it really depends on what you got. But the general space is now being called enterprise mobility management. I'm sure that'll change in 3 months, but that's what it is now.
Right. So I think that all makes sense. I like the way that you described how these things can work together, and that it's based on, what it is. What are your ultimate goals as an organization? Well, assuming that security of data is one of our primary goals, what is this concept of an enterprise workspace that's been secured, and how does that relate to that new normal?
Absolutely. So we're promoting this concept of a secure enterprise workspace on your device. And this is what we think users and agencies ultimately want is I want to have a set of applications that are business focused, and I want a high level of security on those, and I can have one kind of user experience for that, and I don't need those isolated from all the personal apps on that user's device. And the experience for the user is I've got those personal apps on this device. Great. I don't necessarily want you to know about which ones I have. I don't want to have your high security standards enforced on me. I certainly don't want you wiping those devices, my personal apps off. If you think there's issues, just take care of your own stuff. And so it's how do I find this balance between user experience and security um, on a single device where you've got both personal and enterprise. And what we think customers are really looking for is this secure enterprise workspace. I want a set of touch-enabled apps that are on that device that really represent, just like I was sitting in the office. If I was sitting in the office and I logged into my network, and then boom, I can hit all these other applications without having to sign in again. I have a nice single sign-on experience. It's nice and secure. Looking at that, if I can have that access from touch-enabled apps on my device, where these apps trust each other, they share, single sign-on and things like that. That's what a secure enterprise workspace is, and it does not interrupt my user experience of my personal apps. I can still, check stock and do whatever I want without having to be encumbered.
Thank you. That a really good description of what that means. Now, from a federal perspective, there's some details around the secure enterprise workspace that I think we ought to cover that talk about, encryption. So can you go into some of that detail?
Absolutely. So, you know, level one must-have checkbox requirement for federal space is FIPS encryption. So FIPS 142 level one for both data at rest as well as data in transit. So clearly, if I'm downloading information onto my device, that needs to be protected with a high classification encryption engine, and that's what FIPS ensures. But in addition, as I'm communicating, downloading data, doing my authentication credentials, I also want that to be protected by FIPS encryption. And so one of the unique things that Bitzer does is have an app tunnel, and so we eliminate the need for a mobile VPN. The reason why mobile VPNs are risky is that it's a device level VPN, and so um, I can mistakenly download an app on my device that is that's infected, or that's a rogue app that has malware. And if I have a Cisco Juniper VPN, I've just given that app a nice encrypted path into my network. And so, most CIOs really don't think that that VPNs, device VPNs, are really designed for mobile because of this risk of you don't really have control of what the user downloads on that device. And so, what we do is we do an only an app tunnel where only these trusted apps that are part of the secure enterprise workspace have access to that nice mutually authenticated SSL tunnel with FIPS validated encryption. And so that's an important aspect
Yeah,
for
yeah,
federal agencies.
that's a huge feature. And what's this offline access?
Yeah, so as much as we'd like to think we're in a totally connected world today, um, uh, for not only federal agencies, but even for me in the heart of Silicon Valley, you got to have offline access if you want to be productive. So I was amazingly at a mobility conference last week in Silicon Valley and had no cellular or Wi-Fi access. And so if you're going to be productive, you need access. But think about that in federal. You're out in some remote location. You need to be able to have access to data, even if you've got no online connectivity. So offline is a necessary to have for productivity, but of course, if you're going to have offline, then those risks of being able to encrypt
Yeah,
that data, being able to wipe it, are important.
yeah, I think the two work really well together there. And then policy control. I know geofencing is a big deal, so can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, being able to say you're only able to access this data from a certain location, or can't access it from a certain location from over at a certain time period. Being able to set these kinds of policy controls. If I'm on a certain mission and really should only be accessing it from a certain city, etc., you can set those kinds of policy controls that this information is only available. Um, and certain geotime combinations, and being able to look for a compromised platform. The fact is these are still consumer grade devices. They will get jailbroken iOS devices or rooted Android devices. You need to be able to detect that and immediately wipe the information off of those devices. Because once you get root access to those, then really all bets are off. And so you need to be able to have a solution that's kind of looking for that, and being able to get that information off there.
And that's outside of the mobile device management platform, right? That's specifically within the MAM secure containerized solution.
Yeah, I mean some of the MDMs have compromised platform detection too, but any solution, any security solution needs to
Needs to have that.
introduce their own, because all bets are off when that device is when somebody has root access.
Well, Andy, thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to us and explain to us a little bit about what Bitzer Mobile's Secure Enterprise Workspace is all about. I've got a slide up here for folks to follow links to Bitzer Mobile and to Three Wire Systems site. There's also a link down here where you can request a copy of the latest white paper. Um, again, thanks a lot for that. I think, short but sweet, good introduction to the space. Um, what do you see for the future of this kind of technology in the government space? Where is it going?
Well, yeah, I really appreciate the time, Paul, and I look forward to doing it again with you. I see this only increasing. The government is looking to invest in commercial off-the-shelf technology, right? So this COTS technology is the current trend. The belief that it's going to decrease costs, which it should, but also it's really what the users are asking for. And it's happening whether they like it or not. I was read a survey earlier this year where they interviewed CIOs and said, ask them how many of your users are accessing your network with their personal devices, and CIOs, about 23% of them responded and said, yeah, our end users are accessing with personal devices. And then the same survey to end users and said, how many of you are accessing your corporate network with your personal devices? And 39% of them said they're accessing. So, it's happening. They can't control it. It's going to happen. And so you just got to figure out a
Right.
way to deal with it and secure it.
Well, I think you've gotten us all a little bit closer to understanding what actions we can take to make it a little bit more secure. So I thank you for that, Andy, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Paul.
Take care.